What's going on, guys? It's Brandon back here today, and I just realized I misplaced my marker on the other side of the board. Back in just a moment. Sorry about that. Got my marker. Today we're going to be doing something different. I've been taking this inspiration from the hockey guy a little bit, and I want to do something different for a change on the channel. We're going to do a redraft of a draft I wasn't even alive for. And 1 second, my screen just went black. Okay, we're good. I have a piece of paper in front of me with my picks for these spots. And this is the 1999 redraft, known as the worst draft in the history of the league, and especially the worst first round. So we're going to go through this. I picked 28 people out from the draft of who I thought deserved to go in those spots. And it was hard because a lot of these players are not first rounders even. And by the time you even get to about pick, I'd say around pick 11, these guys should not be in the first round. But we're going to go through it, and we're going to have some fun with it. I also have every single name here on the board from the actual draft and where they went drafted, and I have everything on here as well. So to start with the number one spot, it's the 1999 draft. Atlanta was an expansion team, and they get the first overall pick after some shenanigans with Brian Burke, with the Rangers and Chicago and Tampa Bay and Atlanta, all these teams interchanging first-round picks. It ends up being Atlanta's pick from Tampa Bay via Vancouver. They end up taking Patrick Steffen with that pick. They don't with this pick. You're probably thinking of two players on here that are specifically twins, but I'm going to say you're wrong. Because first overall, I would have taken long name, Henrik Zetterberg. Henrik Zetterberg originally went 210th in this draft. So I'll write that up. I'm not going to write it on there. If you listen to the video, you'll know. Henrik Zetterberg goes 210th overall to Detroit in this draft. Absolute steal from Detroit, without a question. Future Hall of Famer. Should probably be already in the Hall of Fame. But that leaves for number 2 and 3 to stay basically the same. However, the order changes. As number 2, with Vancouver selection from Atlanta, that was the pick they traded back and forth. They would take... Now, why does the marker have to die on me now? Unacceptable. Henrik Sedin. And then at number 3, which was their own pick, they would take Daniel Sedin. In real life, they took Daniel Sedin first and then Henrik Sedin second. Just switch it up there. Henrik Sedin, I thought, was the better player, better all-around player. He goes second, Daniel goes third. Not much of a switch there. The Canucks still end up with their 2 franchise-altering pieces for the 2010s, that is, or late 2000s, early 2010s. And this is where things kind of go off the board. So we already have Zetterberg, but everyone knows he's a great player. You have the Sedins, and then you're probably thinking, who else went in 99? And believe it or not, originally the Rangers drafted Pavel Brendel, who did not play very much in the NHL, and that was from Chicago via Vancouver and Tampa Bay. So that pick was in 4 different people's hands. This pick was in 3 different people's hands. There was a lot of magic going around on this draft. And it's funny because it's the worst draft in the history of the league. So you know what Mike Milbury did? He chose to take 4 first-round picks this year. We can go into Milbury's career another day. But 4th overall, Pavel Brendel's taken by the Rangers. And this timeline, this guy goes to a different New York team. Goaltender Ryan Miller. So we have 3 forwards and now a goaltender. Ryan Miller taken 138th overall by Buffalo in this draft. Fantastic goaltender, underrated because he spent most of his career in Buffalo, and then was with the Canucks when they were bad. And then he was with the Ducks when they were bad, and then he basically only went on 2 or 3 playoff runs in his career, which is unfair to him because he was a really good goaltender. He'll never make the Hall of Fame, but if he got a chance with him, if he was the goaltender of like the Chicago Blackhawks in the 2010s, he would be a Hall of Famer. Absolutely, no question in my mind. Speaking of former Blackhawks, at 5th overall, the New York Islanders took Tim Connolly. Not a bad pick. He is in this draft, in this redraft. But Calgary took this guy 77th overall. He ended up being redrafted, and I just did a career video on him. The goaltender, Craig Anderson. And I wrote a G. Craig Anderson was taken 77th overall this year's draft by Calgary. And at this rate, he goes to the New York Islanders. And the Islanders will now have DiPietro. They had already traded out Luongo, but now they have Anderson in the making. And I'd much rather have Anderson than DiPietro, which we can get into the 2000 draft maybe next time. I'm trying to see if I'm trying to do drafts where the players are all retired from it, so I can like appropriately assess their career. So I don't really want to do any of the more recent ones. Like 2003 would be intriguing because like Bergeron just retired, but Fleury's still playing. Eric Staal is technically still playing. And there are a bunch of players from that draft still playing. I'll have to look into what players are still playing because Craig Anderson was the last player from the '99 draft. So I was willing to do this, and also it's a very intriguing draft to look at because it's the worst in league history. Although 2012 is close up there. Maybe we can do 2012 sometime. All right. Now, going 6th overall to Nashville was a player that went number 212 overall to Colorado, and another absolute steal because this guy had some 30-goal seasons. Radim Vrbata. Another former Blackhawk on the list here. But yeah, Vrbata kind of got better as he got older. He was really good whenever he was with the Coyotes. He had that one excellent All-Star year with the Canucks back in 2015, already like 17 years into his career. But overall, Vrbata was one of my personal favorite players in the league at the time. Just one of those unique guys, Czech-born, and good player, a 30-goal scorer at 212. That's a good pick by Colorado. But here he's going 6th overall to the Nashville Predators, who originally took Brian Finley. Now, the next pick would be Washington, who had 7th overall. They took Chris Beach with their pick, and they're not taking Chris Beach with their pick in this one. They are taking who Ottawa took 26th overall. Another very good pick by Ottawa at this spot. Forward, number 7 overall. The Washington Capitals would take Martin Havlat. So that's the 3rd straight Blackhawk here. I swear this isn't biased. This is just how I saw this draft. We had number 26th overall to Ottawa. Havlat, pretty good career. Was with Ottawa when they were really good. Was with Chicago in some of their worst years, and of course he leaves Chicago right before they get good. A very angry man that he was that day. And then he goes to Minnesota when they were kind of bad, and then of course he goes to San Jose when they weren't really at the top, but they hadn't gone to the final yet, so he kind of just missed out on everything. So unfortunate for Havlat, but good career nonetheless. And now moving on to the next row, we have the New York Islanders took from, this was the LA Kings pick. I believe this was this might have been the Felix Potvin trade. No, because Vancouver gave Potvin to LA. So the Islanders get the 8th overall pick from the LA Kings. With that pick, they chose Taylor Pyatt. Pyatt is in this draft. He's not going to go there. This guy was picked 76th overall by the LA Kings, so ironically LA Kings pick again. He's the first defenseman on the board, and I don't know how to say his first name, but he's known as Frank Cabriolet. His name is like Frantisek, some Czech name, but Cabriolet. Good defenseman in his own right. I would say a very good shutdown defenseman with a booming shot. Good two-way defenseman. Just top defenseman in this draft easily. There's no really question about it. He's the best defenseman in this draft. And I kind of think this is where it starts to trail off a bit, because Cabriolet, I would say, skill-wise, was maybe a mid to late first rounder. And then, I mean, the next guy, I think he was overrated a little bit, but he was also with Pittsburgh when they were very bad, so we don't know. 9th overall, this guy was originally, who had the 9th pick? The New York Rangers had that pick from the Calgary Flames, and they picked Jamie Lundmark. I don't know who that is, but in this draft, from the 115th overall, Pittsburgh chose Ryan Malone, forward Ryan Malone, and he's going to go 9th overall right here. That is not how you spell Ryan. There we go. Was with Pittsburgh until 2008, and of course they lose in the final. He goes to Market. He ends up going to Tampa, and kind of had a solemn end to his career. He was a good player in Pittsburgh. I wouldn't say a great player because he had Crosby and Malkin and Letang, and eventually he had Hossa there that year, and Dupuis, who were traded there. And Kunitz came in the next year, of course. And they kind of out with the old and in with the new, except he really wasn't that old yet. Now, 10th overall went to the New York Islanders. That's their 3rd pick in this draft already. And that pick was from Montreal and from the Trevor Linden trade when they traded him to Montreal. And with that pick, they chose Branislav Mizet. Of course, if you want to look at Trevor Linden trade trees, Mizet is, that's not a high point in Mike Milbury's career. Mizet is not in this draft, that's for sure. And with that pick at number 10th overall, the Islanders would choose who went to Nashville, 191st overall, Martin Erat. I think would be Erat going 10th overall seems like a crime in my head, but when it's the 99 draft, you have to make exceptions. And Martin Erat spent his entire career with Nashville, and then he's traded 1-for-1 with Philip Forsberg to Washington. And it's a rough trade. If you want to look back in Washington, they could have had Philip Forsberg, but of course now he's a star in Nashville. Hopefully he can stay healthy this year. But Erat retired not too long after that, and not a bad player, pretty good player. Now, next would be Calgary. Calgary had the 11th overall pick, and it was from the New York Rangers. They took Oleg Saprykin. Saprykin, if he spent more time in the NHL, he'd be higher on this list. He is in this draft, but I would say number going 11th overall to the New York Islanders. 11th, and he was going to the Calgary Flames. He was drafted 5th overall by the New York Islanders right here, and that's Tim Connolly. Tim Connolly has a very good points per game percentage. It's like 0.6 something. I didn't do the math, but just from looking at it, you can tell by that. And went a little high. Didn't play as long in the NHL as probably someone that he might have gotten higher if he played longer in the NHL. But overall, good player, good points percentage, and or good points per game percentage. And nothing much really to say about Tim Connolly. I have his hockey card when he was with the Buffalo Sabres. Now the Florida Panthers chose at number 12 a guy named Dennis Shvidki. I don't know, but definitely not taking him in this draft. And we're going to take who went number 8 overall to the New York Islanders. So another Islander here, Taylor Pyatt. So Taylor Pyatt played a good while in the NHL. Ended up playing with the Islanders, of course, and then he was one of the first guys the Sedins played with on that line. He played with Buffalo, if I'm correct, there in the late 2000s, early 2010s when they had the Buffa Slug logo. And I can't remember off the top of my head if he played anywhere else, but not a bad player. Chosen 8th overall, one of the only first rounders still here. So how many first rounders have we taken so far? Henrik Sedin, Daniel Sedin, Havlat. I could look at here as well. Connolly, Pyatt. So that's 5 first rounders. How many more are there? I chose here 6, 7, 8, 9. There are 9 first rounders in this 28 thing draft. There are more outside the first round. That is saying something about how bad this first round was. Now, number 13th overall, Edmonton chose Yanni Rita. They're going to take who went number 94th overall to Ottawa, Chris Kelly. Chris Kelly spent a long while in Ottawa. He was a member of that 2007 run to the final team. He was also a member of the 2011 Bruins who went to the Stanley Cup final and won the Cup. He was traded there in the middle of the season. And then he, of course, also went to the final with them in 2013. Very solid career. He was more of a third, fourth line forward kind of guy, but he could put the puck in the net in clutch time, and he was good. He was a very good shutdown player. Not a biggest offensive push, but he was a good shutdown player. Now, number 14th overall, I'm going to try to speed this up a little bit. We're at the halfway point. San Jose chooses Jeff Gilson. Who is that? I don't know. Why is my thing looking like it's in slow motion right now? Okay, that's really weird. This guy went number 17th overall to St. Louis, and he also won a Calder Trophy. Defenseman Barrett Jackman. He's the second defenseman taken in this redraft. He won the Calder Trophy in 2003, I believe, and good shutdown defenseman. He had he had some clutch overtime goals in 2013, 2014. Not a noted goal scorer is the funny thing, but Jackman, good career. Spent his entire career with St. Louis, I believe. I don't think he went anywhere else. Played a long while, and that's Barrett Jackman, Calder Trophy winner. Many call him the worst Calder Trophy winner of all time. which is unjustified. He was a very good defensive player. Now, this guy would have been higher on the list once again if he had played longer in the NHL. Edmonton chose this guy 191st overall, forward Mike Comrie. He'd be going to the Phoenix Coyotes, who got that pick from Anaheim instead of Scott Kelman. Scott Kelman is not in this redraft, but Mike Comrie had a lot of points. He put up a lot of points. However, he just did not spend a lot of time in the NHL, which is interesting because you think points equal success. Don't know really much about him, but yeah, that's Mike Comrie. He was drafted by Edmonton 191st overall. Here is 15th. Now going to the Carolina Hurricanes. Originally was David Toneby. No idea, but in this redraft, this guy was drafted by Anaheim, 44th overall. It's another defenseman. Probably heard his name, Jordan Leopold. Leopold played with a few teams. He was drafted by Anaheim. I know he played with Calgary. Now he played with some other team, definitely. I know if his name was around. But Leopold, a good defenseman, and not a guy I'd really probably draft in the first round in most drafts, but we're at that point now. We're running out of, elite level people to... we already ran out of elite level people a while ago, kind of right when we hit past 4. But yeah, that's Leopold going to Carolina at number 16. At number 17, going to St. Louis, which was originally Barrett Jackman. Here, this guy went 70th overall to Florida. Nicholas Hagman. Another guy who kind of just existed, put up a few points, and didn't play the longest in the NHL, but he put up a good few points. And another guy I really don't know much about, kind of before my time, which a lot of these guys are because I was born in 2004. This was 1999. I didn't start watching hockey till 2008-09, when these guys' careers were most of these guys' careers were either done or nearing the end of it. Unless you're Zetterberg, Sedin, Miller, Anderson, Verbata, Havlat. Caberlet was already kind of done by 2011 when he won with the Bruins. Erad I remember because he was played in Nashville. Chris Kelly because he played in Boston. But yeah, now going to Pittsburgh, number 18th overall. What's funny is this guy went to Pittsburgh anyway, 294th overall. Konstantin Koltsov will not be going to Pittsburgh, however, Tom Kostopoulos will. I thought this guy was honestly a defenseman. I was surprised when I saw him listed as a forward. Long name, hard to fit it in there, but Tom Kostopoulos drafted 294th overall. That's a pretty far away draft pick. He's going to go 18th here, and he doesn't have to sit and wait for his name to be called that long. Now, going to Phoenix was Kirill Safronov, and this is their second pick in this draft. This is still Phoenix, remember, not Arizona. And going to Phoenix in this draft was a guy that Boston picked 21st overall, another defenseman, another gentleman that played with the Blackhawks for a little bit, and that's Nick Boyden. Nick Boyden, more of a 6'7" defenseman his entire career, and that's however, he gets some bonus points because he won a Stanley Cup. He was a member of the Stanley Cup winning 2010 team, and that kind of boosted his totals here. Similar to how George Parros is in the first round because he won a Stanley Cup. Michael Layden's in this draft because I'm spoiling it. Now, going 20th overall, going 20th to Buffalo, who took Barrett Haston, I think that's how you say it, was a guy that Nashville took 52nd overall, and he's going to be going 20 here, and that's Adam Hall. And I'm going to be honest, I've never heard of this guy. I saw the amount of games he played, the amount of points he scored. I have no clue who this guy is. To be completely honest, I have no clue who he is. Good player, obviously, because he put points up. He played a while. But 52nd overall at Nashville, he's one of the lower guys on this draft, funny enough. Now going 21st overall to Boston, originally was Nick Boyden. He's already been chosen. We're going to go with another defenseman who went 42nd overall to the New Jersey Devils. He won a Stanley Cup with Carolina, which boosted up his totals once again. He also went to the final with Calgary in 2004. Mike Commodore, fan favorite wherever he went. I remember he scored 2 goals against Chicago, and Columbus slashed them 8-3 back late in the 2010 season. I just remember that because that was a game that just the Hawks were never in. It was in Columbus too, and that's when Columbus was really bad as well. But Mike Commodore, fan favorite, Stanley Cup champion with the Hurricanes, always known for his humor, the big ginger afro he had when he was with the Hurricanes as well, which is pretty funny. But not a bad defenseman, was a consistent player. Now, going 22nd from was Philadelphia's pick, which was from Philadelphia via Tampa. That's a whole thing with the Chris Gradden offer sheet. I will do a video on the Chris Gradden offer sheet as well. I did the one on the Keith Tkachuk one. Chris Gradden isn't a game changer, but it's bizarre. It's just absolutely bizarre how things turned out. Essentially, Philly traded their pick to Tampa, who traded it back, because everything kind of went back to normal. Gradden went back to Tampa. Philly got their picks back, and it was originally 4 first-rounders. It was everywhere. But going 22nd to Philly was Maxime Ouellet. Yeah, but going 22nd here, a guy that was drafted, what was he drafted? 241st overall by San Jose, a defenseman, Douglas Murray. Murray, I don't really know much about. I know he played with San Jose when the Hawks played him in the conference final. Other than that, I don't really know much more about Murray, other than he played with San Jose, and I don't think he played with anyone else as far as I know of. Now, going 23rd overall, this was Chicago's pick. It was via Detroit. This was part of the Chris Chelios trade, and Chicago chose Steve McCarthy. If you remember the Keith Tkachuk video, this would have been one of the picks that would have went to Winnipeg, or that time Winnipeg, when the draft happened. But this would be at number 83 to Anaheim. I was on their 2003 team when they went to the conference final. I believe he played in Atlanta as well. Nicholas Haviland, another guy which I just don't know a lot about, and I'm sorry about that. This is why the hockey guy is much better at doing this than I am, because he's been around long enough. He's been watching hockey since the early 80s, which I've been watching hockey since the late 2000s. So it's very different spectrums here of experience and player names. He's watched a lot more than I have. I know it seems like I'm trying to be a copy of the hockey guy, but I'm also just trying to make this stuff because it also looks fun for me to do. 24th overall. Let's see. 24th, near the bottom of the board there. That'd be Toronto's pick. Toronto picked Luca Ceretta. One of those two people. Never heard of him. This draft, Leafs get a enforcer, a guy that loved to fight, and was drafted 222nd overall by the LA Kings. I remember because I have his rookie hockey card, and that's George Peros, the current head of NHL player safety, who everyone hates. And George Peros won a cup with Anaheim in 2007, and played, I think, longer than maybe I expected when I was looking at his career. But George Peros, guy that would fight, didn't put up many points at all, but he was going to drop the gloves and he was going to beat you into the ground, and of course he had that amazing mustache, which gives you bonus points, obviously. They're going 25th overall to Colorado, who picked Mikhail Kulishov? I don't know. But going there, was picked 11th overall by Calgary, and that is Oleg Saprykin. Saprykin was a good player. Was with that 2004 team that went to the final. He was on the ice for that, I believe, for when Calgary should have basically scored the goal in Game 6. I looked at evidence later that net technically never went over the line, but from the angle it did. He was on the ice and said that puck was in the net, but one of the couple, along with Jelena and those guys who were actually at the net. But Saprykin, if he played in the NHL longer, I think he would have been higher on this list, because he had a good points percentage when he was with the Flames here, and he just didn't play a lot in the NHL, even though he was a good player. Now, I didn't think I'd put this guy in the first round, but going 26th overall was originally Martin Havlat to Ottawa. Here, this guy went number 1 to Atlanta, and of course, he makes the iconic miss with Dallas. Patrick Steffen somehow makes the first round here. Absolutely bizarre how Patrick Steffen made the first round. Picked first overall by the Atlanta Flat Thrashers in 1999. He was a bust, and I wouldn't say he was a complete bust. It was the worst first round in history, and people knew that. And Canucks got lucky with the Sedins. Some people walked out of here good. Buffalo got Ryan Miller. Detroit got Henrik Zetterberg, and Ottawa got some pieces here, and Islanders got a bunch of guys that they would trade away immediately, but that's Milbury effect. But Stefan, of course, everyone remembers him against Edmonton. There's an empty net, and he just misses the empty net, and then Edmonton comes along the other way and scores. That goal allows Edmonton to get the extra point, which allows them to knock someone down out of the playoff spot. I'm not sure if that was 2000. I'm not sure what year that was, but it knocked someone out, and I think it somehow led to like Patrick Kane getting drafted first overall by Chicago. It somehow affected the lottery odds that way, possibly. I remember seeing something about that, and I was like, okay, this is kind of complicated. I'm not going to look into this. But yeah, Stefan going first overall to Atlanta. Here goes 26th overall to Ottawa. New Jersey picked Aaron Arnea. I don't know. But 27th overall, going 100, was picked 128th overall by the Atlanta Thrashers as well. So 2 back-to-back Atlanta picks. Going 27th would be Derek McKenzie. Now, I feel like I remember McKenzie as a Chicago Wolf, playing a lot of games with the Chicago Wolves. He did put up over 100 points in the NHL. But that name just sticks out to me. I feel like when I went to see the Wolves games when I was younger, he was the captain. I really don't remember. But, yeah, McKenzie played with Atlanta, I guess. I don't know. I don't really know much about him, to be honest. If he is the same guy that played with the Wolves. I remember him when he played with the Wolves, and he was the captain there, if that's the same guy. Now, going number 28th overall was a guy that went number 165th to Chicago. He was a hero in Philadelphia, and he kind of disappeared for a bit after this happened. And I remember he just signed with Chicago one day, and he played a few games there. And he came back to Chicago, that is. But going number 28th overall is playoff legend Michael Leighton, goaltender. Michael Leighton in 2010 was a hero for the Philadelphia Flyers fans. He was a guy that was their, I think, third string goalie, because I know Brian Boucher was hurt, and I believe they had another guy who got hurt as well. But Leighton comes in against Boston in game after they're down 3-0. He wins games 4 through 7 to inspire that comeback, that 3-0 comeback. He shuts down Montreal in that 5-game series in the conference final. Then against Chicago, he didn't play awful, though he got pulled twice. I mean, some of those games, and the games in Chicago would just light Philadelphia up. Game 2, he was much better. Game 3 and Game 4, he was good. Game 6, he did his best, but Chicago ends up winning in the end. He lets in that goal that Kane scores from the side, winning the cup in overtime in Game 6. But yeah, this has almost been a half an hour video here. Tell me down below who you would have taken first overall, or tell me down below your redraft of the 1999 NHL entry draft. If this video doesn't work, I might lose my mind. That's like when I did the Marian Hossa one and it just stopped. But I had my sheet here that I had all my notes. I could hold it up straight. There you go. If you see the draft sheet right there. No, my writing is absolute crap, but yeah. So I'm going to clean this board up. I want to thank you guys so much for watching, and I shall see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.